Okay, now I have the privilege. Thank you. Let me share the screen and let's do our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So Radhe Radhe, morning, good evening again to all of you. So let's get started. So like we always do, we start with our appetizers segment, which is the soul soup. Here we are doing the science of mind management. We pick up a nugget related to how do we make our mind our best friend. Apparently, it is not so much. It is misleading us more often than not. And as part of this series, now let's look at this, talk about this. When something unfavorable, unexpected, unpleasing happens to you, it can come in various ways, right? Things that don't go as per our plan, or we come across some person, situation, circumstance which is not palatable to us. Now, in that kind of a situation, would you rather, which one would you want to do? Because those incidents can leave a lasting impression on us, a bad taste or a bad experience, right? Now, would you rather let the event own you because the event is unfolding in front of your eyes, or own the moment? You want to own the moment by choosing to respond in a certain manner, or let the event own you, which could have long-term ramifications as well with regards to how you look at it, or the kind of sentiments you build around it, and the kind of sanskars possibly you can build around it as well, right? Now, we spoke about that if you want to draw favorable circumstances in life, we need to start improving our thoughts. And these are the situations, circumstances, or occasions where we can really downgrade. We can really get into a negative rut, and then get into a thought process, which is, rather than improving our thoughts, we can get into um, something which can actually degrade the quality of our thoughts as well. And there is a cause and effect relationship with regards to how the kind of situation, circumstances we keep on drawing to ourselves. It's like if we feel something, then God said, okay, let me create a test for them. Or if there's a test created for us and we keep failing, that test keeps on repeating. So it's important to have good quality of thoughts and improving our thought process so that we keep on improving and drawing situations which are conducive for our emotional and spiritual growth. Now, mind is the cause of bondage and liberation, as our scriptures say, right? Panchadashi states that maneva manushyanam karanam bandha moksha. And Buddha stated this principle in different words. What he stated in Dhammapada was, suffering follows an evil thought as the wheels of a cart follow the oxen that draws it. Joy follows a pure thought like a shadow that never leaves. Okay, this was stated by Buddha as well. And the level of consciousness is tied to our mind. Veritably, we are what our mind is. And there is a interesting saying in Hindi, I'll translate it into English as well, which says, Bhulana dena is nuskhe ko लाभ अनेक उठाओगे जैसा मन को बना सकोगे वैसा ही बन जाओगे. So basically what it means is that do not forget these golden words. You will derive great benefit from them. The extent to which you will uplift or degrade your mind, so your soul will be uplifted or degraded accordingly. So when we choose to harbor positive, uplifting thoughts, when we have the benefit of spiritual knowledge, use it like a sword to cut asunder the ignorance around us. That's when we can own the moment rather than letting that effect as the event is unfolding, letting that affect us and not and forfeiting the opportunity to harbor or choose uplifting thoughts even in those dire circumstances and utilize it as an opportunity for inner growth as opposed to degrading our thought process as well as our sanskars down the line. So with that said, let's move on to our shloka for the day. I'm going to recite it and then we can have three hands. So by the way, now that we have started talking about it, tomorrow as part of this series, we will talk about the mind body connection as well. Okay, there's a direct relation of our mind with our body, and that is why we need to tend and take care of our mind really carefully. Even in Ramayana, when Lord Ram asked sage Vashisht, when Lord does Leela, he asks questions for the benefit of mankind, not that he doesn't know that. So he asked sage Vashisht, what is Vyadhi? How does it start? And Sage Vashisht had said that Vyadhi is something, it all starts from the mind. So the inception point of Vyadhi is, in English, it is called disease or an ailment. It all starts from the mind. So everything is related to our mind. And the subtle machinery which is implanted in our head that God has endowed us with, it controls everything. Not only what is happening in our body, but also the fact that we can utilize this apparatus to uplift ourselves to get out of this cycle of life and death or to continue repeating here. That is the strong connection of mind, not only with our spiritual journey, but also with our body, which is a vehicle which is endowed by God to us to carry forward with our journey. So it is directly related to our body as well. And that is something we will continue to explore in our subsequent sessions. So with that said, now let's move on to our shloka. I'm going to recite it and we'll take three hands. ब्रह्मण्या ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पदं पवित्रमिवाम्भसा. So in this one, if you think about it, one of the questions that Arjun had posed to begin with to Lord Krishna was that I don't want to incur sin by taking on the blood of my relatives on my hand, right? So this was one of the questions that he had posed initially to Lord Krishna. The Lord Krishna has been explaining and expounding on his answers, what he's talking about. But in this particular shloka, this word sin is repeated, and he's saying there are certain kind of people who remain untouched by sin. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about. Why do they remain untouched by sin? Okay, let's take three hands. A lot of hands, so we'll have to do a bit of a lottery or any miny, whatever our co-hosts would do. So let's take three hands and then move on. We have a hard stop, by the way. So yeah, at 10.
Radhe Radhe.
Uday Kumar.
Radhe Radhe. Brahmani adaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah lipyate na sapapena padmapatram ivambasa. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Udayji.
Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेण पद्मपत्रम् इवाम्बसा. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Who's the lucky last person today?
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Aparna ji, you are the lucky one. Okay, go ahead, please.
ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रम् इवाम्भसा. Thank you, Radhe.
Yeah, Padmapatram Ivambhasa. Very nice. So RLPG, Riya ji, Lakshmi ji, and Pragi ji, tomorrow you get that. Okay, we have a hard stop plus a lot of stuff coming up. So sorry about that. Let's move on. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying that those who dedicate their actions to God, abandoning all attachment, remain untouched by sin, just as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. So lotus is what we are going to talk about. Another thing that is, if we read, in the shloka, God is saying one who abandons all attachment remains untouched by sin. So attachment is actually an unholy thing. If you think deeply about it, it is one of the unholy things, scripturally speaking. And people who can abandon that and can do it with a sense of duty or detached attachment, they remain untouched by sin. Very profound concept. Anyways, let's move on. So we spoke about enamel. I introduced enamel, and the best enamel you can think about is created by one who created this world only, by the inspiration of God Brahmaji. And why is it a good enamel is what we are going to talk about today. So let's move on. Now let's take a look at the lotus. Are you able to okay, you are able to take a look at the lotus. That's good. So the example of lotus is very prominent in our Vedic scriptures. If you think about our Vedic scriptures, it is used by poets. They love to say, what do they love to say? Charan Kamal, like, which is lotus feet. Lotus feet. We talk about lotus feet. By the way, and then what else is used? Kar Kamal. Kar Kamal, lotus hands. By the Kar Kamal, I had heard this word for the first time when you get a prize in school, right? They would say we'll get it from the Kar Kamal of our teacher or our school. I said, what a nice word, right? But Kamal is the key thing here. Kar Kamal. Kar is hand, by the way. And Kar Kamal is used when you get some good prize, right? In Kar Kamal, if you get slapped, they will not say through Kar Kamal. Then they will simply say hand. But something good that gets done, then they use the word Kar Kamal for that. So lotus is again coming here, right? Now hand have become lotus, feet have become lotus. And then Kamal Nayan, lotus-like eyes. Right? That is also used. So in poetic sense. Now, why lotus is used, if you think about it, these are more the closest in the material world, something that comes close to perfection, they use it as a reference. Because now if you talk about how would Krishna look, and it says it looks like a rain-laden cloud, dark cloud. Okay, you'll see, okay, that doesn't look very attractive. But that is a loose analogy. Or like a lotus, they say that, which flower is that? I forgot that, which is violet or purple in color. That is a loose analogy they give so that, something we can relate to. Truly speaking, this is divine. But because we are in the material world, so those analogies are presented so that we can appreciate it, or get close to that concept. If you look at lotus, it's a beautiful flower, right? And poets use these kind of, I don't know what is the actual term for that. My English is not very strong. There's a particular term when they use those kind of analogies to illustrate, I don't know, simile is there, metaphor is there, but nothing of that sort. I think poetic language, they use that word, right? And they use it very appropriately, right? Like Ramcharitmanas is one of those scriptures Swamiji talks about, in which there's a liberal use of all the literary tools that are available for any writer's disposal, right? Very beautifully they are used. Now there are analogies that are used, like big eyes. If you have to define somebody with big eyes, which are attractive, right? Now you can do it like lotus-like eyes, or maybe deer-like eyes. Now big eyes are there for a buffalo as well, but you can't use it, right? You say big eyes like a buffalo, then you know what can happen if you put it as a compliment. So the point here is lotus has a pretty specific, a very particular significance, and for a reason. So even in Buddhist scriptures, if you look at it, Hindu scriptures, we already said they are abound with analogies of the lotus flower. This word is used as a respectful appellation while describing various parts of God's divine body as well. So Charan Kamal, like we say, or Kamal Lakshana means lotus-like eyes, or Kar Kamal, as we see, right? It is used. So there is, of course, some speciality in this flower because it has some astonishing properties. So let's get into that now. The enamel that we were talking about. Now, lotus lives on the water, but it does not allow the water to permeate its leaf. Okay, so that is a beautiful technology that God has created. There's absolutely nothing in this world which does not get eroded by water over time. Okay, weatherproof, if you can build some kind of a paint or something which is weatherproof, the companies will make a killing. But Lotus has that. Brahmaji has designed it. God has that technology to do that. Now you put a drop of water on the lotus leaf and see what happens. It will just go around the leaf like mercury rolling here and there, which is pretty astonishing. As you can see, it's pretty amazing. Have you see that? It's a nice video. Water is there, but it's there and yet not there. It's like you keep pouring it on me, but I will still be insulated from the wetness of the water, right? The dharma of water is to be wet. Something which is inherent to something is called its dharma, right? Water is wet. We haven't heard about something like a dry water. The dharma of fire is to be hot. We haven't heard about a cold fire. Dharma of sugar is to be sweet. You cannot have a salty sugar. And dharma of humans is to serve. You cannot find a human who's not serving anybody. Okay? Everybody's serving somebody. So even though the water's dharma is to make anything that comes in contact with it as wet, but lotus is immune or insulated from that. That is a unique property of lotus. Now, why is it important for us? Let's try to understand that. The lotus leaf is telling, I will not let you touch me. You can do that. It can challenge water. Do whatever you want, but I'll not let you touch me. So it has large leaves that can float atop the water surface. And in Indian villages, even banyan leaves for that matter, they are used. But lotus leaves, they are also used for plates, and liquid poured on them does not soak through. We see basically water does not have any impact, or water cannot challenge lotus flower that I can wet you. And that is the unique property lotus has. And the another beauty of it is, if you look at it, it's actually the inception, the nurturing, and as well as the sustenance of lotus happens in the water itself. Yet the leaf will not let itself to get wetted at any point. It will keep on running on the side as if it is completely insulated from it. Yeah. And it is because there are small hair growing on its surface. That is how it has been designed. Now moving on, let's understand. See, if you look at it, the lotus is growing in the mud. So it grows in the mud. Then it comes out of the water. And then it moves towards the sun. Okay, all three things are happening. So it's in the mud, it is growing in the water, and then it is facing the sun. Now, if you were to draw parallels to it, right, we humans, we grow in the material world. Now you can call it mud too. I mean, there's no harm in calling it mud, right? Rolling in mud only. We are rolling in mud, thinking it to be heaven, but that is truly speaking, it is rolling in mud only. In fact, there's a story of Narad where Indra, now Indra, when he comes back, he can become a piglet as well, right? So the position, even a position of Indra is equated to that of a pig rolling in mud. So Indra said, what are you doing here? Let me take you to better possibilities in life. Indra said, really? There are better possibilities than what I'm doing right now, rolling in mud and enjoying. He said, yeah, there are better possibilities. Okay. So he said, okay, let me accompany you in that case. So now he starts walking along with Narad. And on the way, Indra has a question. He says, by the way, wherever we are going, are we going to find mud there? Narad said, of course not. Then he said, what am I going to do there? So he forfeits that opportunity. So the point here is that we are truly, if you speaking, this material world is considered to be a place of misery. There's no true fun here actually, but we just enjoying this play. And if you look at it from a scriptural, spiritual perspective, it is nothing more than a play in mud, right? You may think it is great, but actually, in the grand scheme of things, or the possibilities that our soul has, it is actually considered a very, very lowly kind of an existence. So people grow in material world, and and then they can rise above material tendencies, which is, if you think about the lotus growing in the mud, then it comes out of the water. So the expectation is that we start transcending the material tendencies. And then the sun is the source of light and enlightenment. And that is when we start dovetailing our mind towards God and start striving for divinity. Right. So if you draw parallels with the lotus, the existence of a lotus, how it is able to thrive in an environment, that is an inspiration we can draw from it. even though it is coming from mud, even though it is surrounded by water, still it is able to make its way out, thrive, and face towards the sun. So for humans also, this is expected that even though we are in a lowly kind of an existence right now in the material world, even though we are surrounded by so many material distractions, we are expected to thrive, survive, and then turn our consciousness towards God, divinity. Okay, so this is the parallel from lotus. Now another word for lotus is pankaj, which means born from mud. Right, so born from mud. And lotus flower, it grows from the mud found at the bottom of the lake, and yet it continues to rise above the water and blossoms towards the sun. I said, right, all the three stages. And it is used as an example in our literature, Sanskrit literature. It's something that can, which is born amidst the dirt and rises above it while retaining its beautiful purity. Another thing is, it is not tainted by its surroundings. It is able to thrive regardless of its situation and its surroundings. Right? We talk about our surroundings and say, because of this and this, I am like that. Now, if you look at the nature, it gives you a beautiful example in form of lotus, that its surroundings has no bearing on its existence or on its appearance or the disposition that it has to face light. Right? It's not like mushroom. You grow it, you don't give it sunlight, you don't give it air, put it in a dark room and it starts thriving. Lotus, it's still facing towards the sun, and it retains its beauty regardless of its surroundings. So there's a lot of inspiration that we can draw, and I think it's for a reason. Even if you look at lotus, it's so soft, beautiful, delicate, and that's probably why it is extensively, there's a liberal use of lotus in so many analogies throughout our literature, including how one would describe God's feet, his hand, or his eyes as well. Okay. All right. Now, so what does it mean? How do we become like lotus is the question, right? So let me touch upon it briefly, and then we can have a bit of a discussion on what we spoke about. Now, this is what we spoke about lotus, right? Water is falling on it, and both are like mutually exclusive. There's absolutely no what you call interference that is happening. Now let's talk about ourselves. Okay. Karam Yoga is where we spoke about no attachment, and then the enamel insulation part of it. Okay, so let's build on that. How does this unfold? So this is us. You've seen this glorious soul. This is who we are. Right. So as we start implementing Karam Yoga or deepening the practice of Karam Yoga in our life, what will happen? Let's see. You did a bit of Karam Yoga. You progressed a little bit. Right. So bit of enamel insulation also you got. Okay, this is how it will work. Then you increase it. This will follow suit. You increase it, this will follow suit. And finally, you will get an upgrade as you see that. So the point here is you can also build an enamel around yourself where you become completely insulated to your environment, like the lotus is thriving. But that happens when we deepen the practice of Karam Yoga, when we start moving away from that unholy thing, which leads to sin, which is bhog. And why do we do bhog? Because we have that consciousness that it is for my enjoyment. Why do we have that consciousness that it is for my enjoyment? Because we have some kind of an attachment, thinking this is the cause for happiness, or I'm going to derive some kind of an happiness. And when we do it for our pleasure, it becomes bhog, and it becomes a binding thing. Now, binding, anything that is binding, strictly speaking, that is a sin only. Okay, Maharaj has given that very strict definition. Anything that binds you is a sin only. Anything that takes you God is true punya. But as we start building our consciousness, it is a direct correlation with building those assets around you, that Suraksha chakra around you, where you start becoming more like lotus leaf until you can happily float around with and enjoy that immunity. If you have progressed on it to 10% immunity, you can enjoy from anger, greed, lust, envy, and all that stuff. 20%, when you perfect your Karam Yoga, which is basically culmination in perfect surrender, then you will have a perfect Suraksha chakra around you, and you have an upgraded existence at that point. Okay. So this is the way to build that enamel where every second thing that is happening in your life, when we spoke about our soul soup segment as well today, those situations, they will not own you at that point. Then you can navigate like a boat going through an ocean or in water without letting the water come inside you. So the only way to do that is to deepen the practice of Karam Yoga, take away that unholy attachment which leads to sin and which binds us further into this world. And then we can enjoy the status of a lotus. Then you can say, no matter what situation, circumstance, people, anything that come what may, you can enjoy your status without getting tainted, implicated, or bound by anything around you. So that is the relationship on how we can between a lotus, or the analogy that we have been trying to talk about, and how we can enjoy that status that Lord Krishna is talking about of becoming sinless. Then you reach that stage, no matter what you do at that point, it's bereft of sin at that point. Why? Because now you're doing it for the pleasure of God and not for any self-seeking at that point. Any questions? I know it was a little conceptual, philosophical. So any questions around it? Yes, Archana ji.
अर्चना जी राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe. So how would I know that you have reached that state? Does that mean that you don't get any emotion attached with anything?
See, how much we have progressed, only God and Guru can tell us. Okay, not tell us, but they would know. We don't have a means to know that. Having said that, there are certain yardsticks you can apply to see whether you are progressing or regressing. And those yardsticks would be like, is your anger, greed, envy, all that stuff is diminishing over time, or it is increasing. If it is diminishing, then you are on the right path. And they say the FIR, you can remember frequency, intensity, and recovery of situations which are which put you in a spot in your mind. Like, for example, if you get angry, the frequency should decrease, the intensity should decrease, and your recovery time from setbacks and reversals should also decrease. So FIR, you can remember, if the frequency, intensity, and recovery time are diminishing on situations that make you uncomfortable or things, you are able to rebound quickly, that means you are progressing. But exact quantum of where you are on your spiritual trajectory, how far you have come from where you started, only God and Guru would know. There's no way for us to know, but these are some of the indicators that you can employ on yourself and say, something is working. But if it is not happening, it's not possible. That it's like you cannot grow a mango tree on a hilltop. Why? Because the cold weather will not permit it. It is not conducive. Similarly, it's not possible that you are progressing in spirituality and at the same time your anger is increasing, or at the same time you get anxious and worrying frequently. I mean, you can, but intensity would decrease, your frequency would decrease, and your recovery when you fall down would be quicker. So these are some of the yardsticks you can apply to say that, am I progressing or am I regressing? So yeah, that's my 1 cent on this. Archana ji, hope I answered some part of it.
संध्या
Archana ji.
राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe. So actually, it's a thought on the same topic.
Mhm.
So looking at this example, like the chemistry wise, the reason why they are not interacting is basically like the attraction between water molecules.
Surface tension, right? I know. That's the word you're looking for. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's the physics. But what I was trying to say is that if we develop our attachment to God or to the divine entity, which is just like us, our soul, then automatically our connections with the material world, which is not of our nature, will reduce. So that is what is, I feel, reflected in this. Because water and the layer on top of this are of different kinds, and hence they are not interacting with each other.
True. Very true. It's kind of a coat you are building around yourself, right? So more your attraction or basically your affinity or your love towards God starts deepening, the more that layer will start getting formed around you. So you will not get implicated in worldly things so easily, and that will not interfere with your mindset. You'll still operating, but it will not interfere with your mindset, right? Narsi Mehta, he said famous lines. I've forgotten the lines, but he saw his family. He said, okay, maybe this you finished off this janjal also, family burn. He saw that. And he said, okay, maybe it's you burnt my family and finished off this janjal. Maybe it's time to only think about Nandagopal. So something like that he said. So he could actually utilize that kind of a traumatic situation also towards that, because he could think it that way. But for us who are in a materially conditioned state, if kind of a material reversal happens to it in terms of, financially, emotionally, or, it's like it's very difficult for us to cope up with that and to recover from that. But people, they have that consciousness. You start transcending that. Yes, let's take a few more hands. Poonam ji, I see a new hand. Poonam, Abhi ji, please.
They, I, from what I understand, I've not read the Gita in a long time. I read it for 5 years continuously, and I haven't read it for a long time. But from what I read now, I'm in the middle of reading the Mahabharata, actual Mahabharata, and we've reached the place where the yuddha is about to happen. The सेना सब इकट्ठा हो गई है, but abhi Gita has not come. So I'm like, there are still a few chapters to go before we actually get to the Gita. But what happened in the due process of reading the Mahabharata, I came across something called Vyada Gita. And from my experience of over the years, having read whatever I read of the scriptures and everything, I believe that Gita is telling us about the Gyan, and everybody is like, Gyan chahiye. Lekin Gyan will help only when you are actually doing your karma, and Gyan will help us to keep that tension, to keep us away from the pollution that comes through the karma, because we get angry, we get upset. वो नहीं होने देता है वो. And that is very clearly cited in Vyad Gita.
So what's the question, Poonam ji?
No,
or-
not question. That was something that. So when we are doing the Gyan, we have to actually. When they said, how do we know that we are getting over everything? So in the Karma Yoga, they always talk about the Indriya Nigraha. Indriya Nigraha, that you have to control your 5 senses.
Mhm.
And that is what will help us get to that point. And it is a lot of practice to keep doing. Very difficult also.
True, Poonam ji. So you please keep attending that. I think this is a Bhagavad Gita is both a Brahma Vidya, which is the knowledge of the divine, as well as a Yoga Shastra. It is
Yes.
the practical application of that knowledge as well, Yoga Shastra as well. So having said that, you can actually systematically approach it. Yes, Indriya Nigraha is there, but I'll take it another tips further, right? Now we're talking about a topic, we'll not go too detail into it. But if you go through this, the journey that we are on, or reading the Bhagavad Gita, you will understand there's a very structured and a systematic approach on how we can actually get to the, bridging the gap between the knowledge and actually the application part of it as well. And Indriya Nigraha is also part of it. Now we are going to talk
Yes.
a little bit about it tomorrow, Karam Yoga part of it. And I would take it a little further. We make Indriya inconsequential. Okay, we are at a point. And how do we do that? We'll talk about that as well. So yes, I think what you're talking about is fine. But yeah, what I'm trying to say here is that as part of this journey, we touch upon all these aspects and then see how do we practically apply. So it's not just limited to the theory alone, but taking the nuggets and seeing how we can apply it in the laboratory of life and actually start truly benefiting from it as well. So Indriya Nigra is one of it. There are tons of other tools. Bhagavad Gita is like a general store. Okay, it's not just one tool. There are tons of other tools. Whichever tool works best for you, you start with that. And what you would see is it's like a pack of noodles. Other things that you need would automatically start aligning to it and coming together. But good points, Poonam ji. Talking about Mahabharata, actually, if you think about it, sometimes we look at it metaphorically as well. But if we limit it to metaphor only, like in some of the commentaries they do, then we are trivializing this great scripture, right? So, but if I were to put a little bit of a metaphor around it, then I came across a small video snippet here today. So our mind is like Dhritarashtra, it is blind right now, and we are empowering it with knowledge. This Bhagavad Gita is going to empower it with knowledge, and five Pandavas, we are going to align those five senses so that we can utilize it for a common purpose, and something that truly helps us spiritually. And Kauravas is all the negative energies that reside within us that we need to conquer over time. Anyways, let's move on and hear from Himanshu. And I see a couple of more hands before we move to we have a little bit of time before we get into our devotional segment. Yeah. Yes, Himanshu, go ahead, please.
Radhe, Nitin, Radhe, everyone.
Radhe, Radhe.
I wanted to highlight on the point that someone asked, how do we know if we are progressing? I think that is the most important point, because if we are doing everything else, but if we are not keeping a record of what is not working for us, especially our tendencies, then it's like the same thing that we had discussed in past also. That's what Maharaj always says, that you are एक हाथ से नहाना साबुन से and दूसरे हाथ से कीचड़ डालना. So if you are doing so many good things but you are still in you have bad tendencies and you are experiencing it, for example, talking to a colleague, and immediately you get a thought of, and you realize that that thought is not helping me, it is resulting in my fall down. So even that minute thought is very important, because it's not going to go that easily. So ultimately we have to try different techniques. So feeling the presence of God all the time, every time, is very, very important, because if we don't do this, there is no chance that we will even be having that elevation in this present janam, like birth.
Yep.
So intensity is very important.
Yeah, and that's where I think that principle of nirantarta comes in. Nirantarta, because with the moment our mind slips away from God, there are only two areas, world and God. So when it slips away from God, it goes into world, and world has got Triguni Maya. So that colors of Maya will put their imprints on your mind. And when it goes to God, it cleanses your mind. So you are doing a bit of cleansing and bit of color, cleansing, clear, color, and depending upon which one you are doing more will be more dominant in your mind. So it's a simple arithmetic. You apply maths to it, it will work the same way. And the scriptures call us that what we end up doing because of our conditioned state is, it is called Kunjar Shachvat. Kunjar Shachvat means that the bathing of an elephant, it takes bath and then immediately puts dust on top of it. That's essentially what most of the people end up doing, at least I end up doing. But then that needs to be reversed, so that, and Karam Yoga helps us build that consciousness where we are thinking about God in whatever we are doing, and that's a great stepping stone to get into that consciousness, that matter. So yeah. Okay, yes, Rahul.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. There is a beautiful couplet by Maharaj in Radha Govind Geet where he compares Braj with the lotus flower. Maybe I can do that at the end during a devotional segment.
Yes. In fact, it is said that even in Golok, where Radha and Krishna reside, it is at the center of the Golok in a lotus. It's a divine lotus. That's where they do. So that will be the heart of Golok. I don't know who gets to go there, but let's target that if we can one of those days, right? And we can find the map to that lotus finally, where Radha and Krishna's darshan you can have, and that is also a lotus, is what I've come to know. Or anyways, yes, Rahul, you wanted to add something else? By the way, please
Yeah.
fill out the feedback tracker if you have any questions. And tomorrow we'll talk more about the Karam Yoga part of it, because that is how we build that enamel like lotus around us. So next time you are doing Karam Yoga, think, okay, I'm getting some enamel which is very strong, which is going to protect me from the worldly distractions. Yes.
Yeah,
Samir?
I can recite that doha if you want, or maybe at the devotional segment.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
ब्रज है कमल जैसा गोविंद राधे, वृंदावन मकरंद जैसा बता दे, which means Braj Dham is like the lotus flower and Vrindavan is like the nectarine juice or the bliss of that lotus. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Thank you, Rahul. You always bring in nice couplets, very, very appropriate for the discussion that is having. And sometimes you make your own, which are even more fascinating. So thank you for that. Yes, Amiran.
In the meantime, Ajit ji has a comment. He says, another analogy is construction of earthen pot. Once it is exposed to sun and fire heating, earth becomes immune to water, useful for drinking of cold water during hot summer.
Yeah, earthen pot, very true. Thank you, Ajitji. Nice one. Yes, Amiran, go ahead, please.
Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe everyone. I
Radhe Radhe.
just wanted to ask about the feeling of being the bhokta. Like, is it something that comes out of the gunas of the person? And if it is that, then if a person aspires to become like crack a government examination, IS, IPS, and after accomplishing that, is it how in that context he can feel that I am not the doer, or how can avoid the feeling of being the bhokta in that situation if he has taken a very strong sankalpa?
No, so that you can purify, right? So that now you want to become an IAS officer, so that you can enjoy the lal batti and salute. I mean, at least I had that motivation. I never gave that exam. That's a different thing. But what is the so that for that? Why do you want to become IAS officer? Now you want to become IAS officer so that you want to serve people. Okay, fair enough. Then it becomes a sattvic deed. Now you want to become an IAS officer so that you get an opportunity to serve people, as you want to become an instrument of God to serve people. Then it becomes a gunatit thing. So now you're dovetailed it to God. You want to become an IAS officer so that you can have a healthy package, so that you can earn more and give more. Then it becomes gunatit. But you want to become an IAS officer so that you can enjoy power, fame that comes along with it. That becomes a rajasic at that point. You want to become an IAS officer so that you can get the next petrol pump around it. It could be tamasic, right? Especially if you're thinking about under the table stuff that you can get. So motivation drives the activity in itself is fine. You can become an IAS or the state cadre administrative officer, but what is your motivation is what determines whether it is tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, or gunatit. You know what I'm saying? The intention behind that act. And it's good to be ambitious. Spirituality does not mean do not be ambitious at all. It's perfectly fine to be ambitious. In fact, God has endowed us with infinite potential. But the so that part of it can be purified and dovetailed towards God. If you're doing it for your own sake, for your own enjoyment, then it becomes, maybe Rajasic, Sattvic kind of a category. But if you're doing it with some bigger purpose in mind, then it becomes Gunatit at that point. That's the whole idea. I hope that answers. Okay, great. Yes, Sandhya.
Just like what Himanshu ji had said in connection with that, like one trait that probably is a sign of progression is witness consciousness. Like when we start observing ourselves and, we at least question what we are doing and whether it aligns with what we have learned. So that is, I felt.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought in. Witness consciousness. It's a great tool. In fact, it is the tool on the Marg, Gyan Marg. It is one of the tools on the Bhakti Marg, but it is a great tool actually. That witness consciousness, if you can observe yourself and not participate in everything, become a spectator. And if you can always do that, that itself will bring in a lot of transformation actually. When we simply become an observer, there's bound to be transformation, because now you're not participating, you're just observing yourself. What's going on in my mind? What did I do? Could I have done something different? Did I react or did I respond? Everything, you start getting a lot of answers. And when we simply see things start improving. That's how it works. So great thing. Yeah. So if can we step back and look at what we are doing, if we can do that, it's a great sign of progress. Thank you for bringing that, Sandhya. Chandruji.
Chandruji, Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Radhe Radhe. Nitinji, to understand this image over here, the karma yoga, we have to do the actions that will upgrade our souls, right? We upgrade ourselves. And if I understand right, enamel insulation is like the coating on a tooth, and it will, if we don't put that enamel, it will, the cavities will increase, the rotten the teeth. So is that the same analogy you are using for the carbs, that we
Okay.
should not taint it, and we should upgrade our version?
Yeah,
Am I
basically
right?
enamel,
Am I
enamel.
understanding this right?
Yeah, so basically just want to clarify that enamel is basically, I've used it in the sense that you are building some kind of a coating around you where it makes you insulated from the impressions of the world. Right? So it's just like if so yeah, some
Don't
kind
do
of coating.
binding karmas.
Yeah, some kind of a coating you are building. Like when you are in rain, you wear a raincoat. So it's kind of a raincoat you could wear, and that will not implicate you in things that are happening around it, and gives you can enjoy some kind of an immunity from that. See, I can give you another analogy for that. That Swamiji gives, a beautiful one. It's like when the milk is there, when milk comes in contact with water, it gets diluted, right? So when the milkman comes in the morning, there's always a fight going on. You put water in the milk, and sometimes he say, no, I didn't do that, I actually put milk in the water. But the point is, when it comes in contact with the water, it starts losing its identity. It actually starts diluting it. But you take the milk, put it aside, get cream out of it, churn that yogurt, and then make butter out of it. And then the same milk, just because you withdrew it, and now that butter can actually sit on the top of water and challenge it that you cannot do anything to me. So the point here is, now it enjoys that immunity from water, right? Milk has transformed. So that transformation happens within us as well when we continue to progress in Karam Yoga, where the daily mundane things that trouble us, that take our mind space, that gives us worries, anxieties, fear, anger, all those emotions will start subsiding and diminishing over time. That was the whole idea of building that enamel that I'm talking about. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chandruji. Yes,
Radhe
Pratyusha.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Pratyusha, go ahead.
Mute. Yeah. Radhe Radhe everyone. Radhe Radhe Nitin sir. Just some tips that I was in this lotus that I have been trying and have been successful. Many times we are basically calm, quiet, but the things around us might not be any random things. So if it is like that, then we previously how I used to react was, okay, this person is angry and it is because of me, and okay, if I get angry or I reply back, he or she can calm down or quiet down. But these days I always think, okay, this person is angry, it is that person's problem, it is not my problem. So that is kind of what this lotus leaf is also doing, anything is falling on it, it is just letting it go, it is not my problem. So if you keep saying that, if you truly believe that, you will become calmer, the reactions that you give will also come down. So it has worked wonderfully. Sometimes we always, we have a tendency to react, but just stop and think that how I am right now and how I will be after that. Sometimes we will say something and we'll feel guilty. So let's not entertain that. If and you can make that person realize also, you know, you are having this problem, work on it. And the
A good.
whole scenario will change if you truly look at it.
Yeah. Sometimes we end up fueling each other's anger as well when we start to participate. But if we can practice that, that's a great way to diffuse the situation and not be like this lotus flower at that point, right? So anything that works for us, right? NMFE is a good thing, not my freaking problem. It's your problem, your anger. That's a good way of looking at it. Thank you, Pratyusha. iPhone 173, 7 plus 1 is 8 plus 3, 11. Yes, please go ahead, iPhone G.
Yeah, so I have grown a lot spiritually, and that it's bothering me a lot less, but
Going to
still some
spirituality.
triggers. I'm Preeti, by the way. I don't know why it keeps doing iPhone 173. I have no
Preeti,
idea because I keep changing my name and it goes back to that. I don't know. Maybe I
Preeti ji.
need to.
So Preeti ji,
Yeah.
There is no cause and effect with what you said. You said you have grown spiritually and it is bothering you a lot. So is that what you meant?
No, so it used to be bothering me so much. I used to feel very depressed, like, how can it be like this? And when the person that you live around is what do you call narcissist, they lie, they want to just constantly do things that is not right. It was very difficult. But I learned to let go and I learned to grow spiritually. But sometimes the trigger does happen and I go into that phase. But then when I listen to Swamiji's lectures, YouTube videos, and come back to Bhagavad Gita, it's easier to pull myself out than it
Yeah.
used to be. So, but I'm still not there. I don't know how to be there when something really, like, how can somebody just come out of nowhere and just kind of zap you, in their energy? So
True.
sometimes it's very hard for me to become a lotus in the same situation, which has been super difficult,
Yeah, I think it's a common problem what you're talking about. So if that's the bad news, the good news is that you're not the only one, right? We
Yeah.
all, we all have those dispositions, and if you think about it, why do we err even though we attend all these things and we discuss all this knowledge? Why do we slip? We slip because the knowledge slips. And that is why repeated contemplation is needed, and then of course God's grace is needed, but we are getting better. The space may vary, but we are, see, the fact that it troubles you, right? Why did you get implicated in that situation, even though you have been listening to lectures and attending Bhagavad Gita and all that stuff, right? But the fact that it is troubling you, it is a sign of improvement. Previously you might have justified yourself, I was fine in venting out my anger. Now you are challenging yourself, questioning yourself, so that's a sign of improvement. And it is going to take a bit of a time, right? We are in a conditioned state now. Even to get a drug addict to rehabilitate, it takes a while, and now we are talking about a conditioned state for an infinite lifetime. So we got to be a little patient about it, but the improvement will happen as long as you are ticking the fundamentals, doing the right things. You are in seva, you spend time in sadhana, then you subscribe to this knowledge. That's the best you can do, and keep on contemplating, and it'll start falling in place. But if you think your current version, you compare it with the version when you didn't have benefit of this knowledge, you would know intuitively that you have come a long way, and that's a sign of progress. So we got to be a little patient around it. Hope that answers, Preeti ji.
Yes, it helped a lot. Thank you. I mean,
Thank you.
and
Yep.
even listening to this right now, I was in that phase in subconsciously because I've been there for a long, long time. I pulled myself out. So it's definitely very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we all need to get better at, pulling out the right kind of knowledge right from our hat when it is needed. And we are all WIPs, right? Work in progress. So it'll take time, but at least we are following the fundamentals. So got to be a little patient and trust God. He's going to make a few things happen, especially when we are doing this intellectual sacrifice and truly wanting to make a difference in our lives. Yes, Rahul, you wanted to say something? How much time do we have? Any quick announcements? 4 minutes before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add few comments from the chat. Sri Ramya ji says that reminds me of yoga Padmasana, the lotus pose. It also keeps spine erect, calms the brain, and improves attentiveness. Another inspiration from lotus.
Yes, very nice. So by the way, we'll continue on this discussion on how do we build this enamel or coating around us that lotus enjoys, become like lotus. So we will build on that tomorrow. And then we have our spiritual cash up segment that you would not like to miss out on, right? You've seen how it goes. And tomorrow is going to be another exciting session, I'm pretty sure. So don't want to miss out on that. I don't know what the topic is, but it is going to be very relevant, I'm sure, related to the topics that we are talking about. So do tag your calendars for tomorrow's session, and we'll continue on our discussion on this topic as well. Any other questions or think you have, please fill it out in the feedback tracker as well. Anything else, Rahul? Announcements?
There is another comment in the chat. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Kirtan retreat, I wanted to tell, April 19 to 21, Swamiji will be here. Do not miss out on that. And I told you, one step you take towards Kirtan retreat is equal to 100 yajna. agyas. So you can take a lot of steps around it. Okay, you can take your 10,000 step challenge that day, and you know how many agyas it will translate to. Yes. What else, Rahul? You wanted to say?
Yeah, I think Sandhya ji might want to make.
Yes, Sandhya.
Of course, no devotional segment today, but one comment from Swati ji.
Mhm.
Radhe Radhe, I loved lotus analogy today. Session was beautiful. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Swati ji. And we'll continue to expound on the glories and beauty of lotus tomorrow as well. And that Karma Yoga aspect to it as well. Any other things? We have
And
two minutes.
another comment from Archana ji. Yeah, Swami ji has explained it to be painful awareness of self when you are on spiritual path. I think she was talking about the previous topics on this slide, but yeah, pretty nice comment.
Sure. Thank you, Archana ji. Chandan ji, you asked that what was intellectual sacrifice in the message, personal message to me. See, when we read Bhagavad Gita and we put faith in it, and we want to hear of it, and we are setting aside time to understand the concepts that Lord Krishna is talking about, and we put faith in it, that is also considered as an intellectual sacrifice. And we know sacrifice purifies. So anything that we do, which is related to our scriptures and reading Bhagavad Gita, is also an intellectual sacrifice or a gyan yagya, so to say. So it will give us its fruit as well. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something? One more minute.
First read comment from Monica Di.
Mhm.
Political party with lotus sign also is doing wonders in Bharat.
That is a good observation, Monica ji.
Kamal Kachin.
It's very, I mean, it's $1 million question, which party you meant, but I will try to figure it out. We'll Google it up. Great. So thank you again, everybody, for an engaging, fascinating session like you always we have. Please fill out the feedback tracker for any questions you may have. We can continue to build on this topic tomorrow, and do not miss out on the spiritual cash up segment tomorrow. So with that, Radhe Radhe, and thank you from my side. Over to Sunil Bhai and Ajay for the next session. So good night, good day to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Rahulji, can you make me the host?
Yes.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you, Rahulji. Are you there, Rahulji? Yeah, can you make the host for me?